We have the first question, and we will start with Dana Walsh. What arguments will be most effective in getting San Francisco Democrats to vote for you over Nancy Pelosi?
I have some very important economic self-interest issues to bring up to my constituents or my voters. I met with the Heritage Foundation when I was back in Washington, D.C. at CPAC as well, and they brought up a couple of very important financial wake-up calls that have to do with the kind of tax policy that Nancy Pelosi has in mind. I think when I tell San Franciscans, and especially this is just for Congressional District 8, the Heritage Foundation's figures, that the new taxes, now remember we're in a high-income area, so we are going to be hit much harder than many parts of the country. We are going to lose in Congressional District 8 over $600 million a year that is going to be sent to that sinkhole in Washington, D.C. I think that's a message that people in San Francisco will really resonate with, because you walk down the streets of San Francisco, we used to think we were pretty immune to what's going on in the economy, but there are empty storefronts everywhere. And I think when they realize that's $600 million that aren't going to be spent on our local businesses, whether it be service businesses, retail businesses, our restaurants, I think that's going to be the kind of message that resonates with them. And the Heritage Foundation gave me many other of those types of messages to give. So I think when it comes down to really explaining to them what this is going to mean locally, things like the tax deduction on charitable donations is going to be lessened. We need our nonprofits. We have so many, and they do the job they do in so much better a way than the government does it, and at such a less cost. Again, those are the messages I want to give the people of San Francisco.
Thank you very much. That mic on. Thank you very much. John, would you address that question? Again, what arguments will be most effective in getting San Francisco Democrats to vote for you?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, this has been made much of in my positions. I find myself firmly entrenched for the last 25 years in what I refer to as the Liberty wing of the Republican Party. It's the part of the party that was home to Ronald Reagan, Barry Goldwater, Milton Friedman, Robert Taft, and of course Ron Paul. Those pro-liberty or libertarian issues, and let's not be afraid of the word libertarian, because Ronald Reagan was a self-identified libertarian and wants to describe the heart, if you would, if I can paraphrase, of conservatism as libertarianism. It just means that, what I said before, that you can live your life as you choose, as long as you don't hurt anyone else. My positions are a little different than maybe a traditional Republican, particularly on issues like the war, for example. And I think in that regard, I'm going to actually have a better chance of connecting with folks across the political spectrum. My opponent ran in 2008. She raised more money. Nancy Pelosi's had 11 Republican opponents. Ms. Walsh was the 11th, and she raised more money than the previous 10 combined, and yet got the fewest votes as a percentage that any Republican has ever received. I think her candidacy is pretty much in the same state as it was 2 years ago. And it's exactly the kinds of positions that I hold that will help me reach out across the political spectrum in a way that maybe a traditional Republican may not. It won't be easy. I've been out in the community. I was in the middle of 30th and Sanchez, the city, which isn't exactly a Republican stronghold, this week, and was reminded when I said that the country had some fiscal problems. One of the people in the audience said, "Oh, that's okay, let's just print up the money." And I started laughing and turned away, and as I realized that when I was turning away, I went to look back, I caught it in the corner of my eye. He's serious. He's very serious about this. So it's going to be a challenge. There's no question about it. But I think if you stay firm in your principles, if people know who you are and where you come from, they'll know where you stand, and then they'll follow.
Thank you very much. The next question is, would you comment on energy rationing, cap and trade, cap and tax, and the effect it would have on the economy? We've got a number of questions in this area, so we'll touch on that, probably go back to it. John, would you start with that one, please?
Sure. Had another discussion with a left-leaning lawyer the other day who thought that the environmental issue is the defining issue of our era. He thought that it is the only thing that really matters that we need to talk about. And my comment to him as an attorney was, well, if typically you tax people and you penalize people with money in order to compensate the aggrieved. In other words, if you have a personal injury suit, the person who was injured is the one who gets paid. Right? So in this cap and trade scheme, why is it that since we're the aggrieved, we're the ones who are supposed to be getting hurt, why are we not getting the money? Why does the money go to the government? That ought to tell you everything you need to know about the cap and trade scheme. Of course, it's just another, as I mentioned in the WorldNet Daily article, it's just another excuse to tax. The government is an interesting beast. It's not terribly creative about a lot of things, but it is amazingly creative on the ways they can find of separating you from your money. And this is one of the latest and greatest examples of it. The idea that carbon dioxide is a pollutant, which makes us dangerous polluters, is laughable on its face. And yeah, I mean, I think that energy rationing is pretty much what governments do. Everything that government touches ends up in rationing, and incidentally, this healthcare system is going to end up being the same thing. Government's going to end up telling the insurance companies what services can be doled out, what can't. You notice out in the Central Valley, the government is responsible for water. What's happening there? The rationing. The free market is where dynamism is. The free market is where energy comes from, where abundance comes from. Nothing gets created from the government. So that's where our future holds if we let them get control of this. Thankfully, we had some hackers who went in and exposed what these emails were all about, and I think that could be on the shelf for a little while. But as the abolitionist Wendell Phillips said, always remember that eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. These people will never give up, and neither should you.
Thank you. Dana Walsh, would you refer to this? Can you comment on energy rationing, cap and trade? Do you think it will affect the economy, and how?
I don't think there's any question it will affect our economy in devastating ways. It all depends on just who you listen to, and it's going to be much like the health care bill. It's so convoluted. It was passed in the dead of night in the House, the Waxman bill, and one of the things that's so ironic about it is that with these green energy sources, et cetera, there is absolutely, there's not one energy expert that says that any of these measures will allow us to become energy independent within the next 10 years. And really, that's what we have to start looking into. I also think the fact that we are letting our oil reserves, that there's so much to be done here to employ people to make us energy independent using the oil we have. I just think the whole thing is a disaster. There's a very ironic part about it too, though. And as they punish our industries by taxing this energy, our businesses are not going to be able to compete. And isn't it ironic? It will be going to China. China is pretty much powered by coal. They are going to make the same products that we could be making here in a clean and responsible way. And they're going to be making them and polluting worse than they would if we didn't order them. It's like so much that government does. When you realize that Congress is filled with people who have never really done anything substantive in their lives, it's just an indication of how out of touch they are with the American people, and even with solid solutions to answers. So I think cap and trade is a total disaster, and I'm just terrified that if we don't make our voices known about how unhappy we are about this healthcare bill, we're going to see cap and trade. Probably not next. I think amnesty will be next, but I think that's on the agenda very soon.
Thank you. I'd like to look at, there's a lot of similarity in a lot of your questions.